So, for anyone starting out in life, one of the most important books in the Bible to read is the book of Ecclesiastes. Now, even more important is the lesson to be learned in chapter 3, verse 1, which says that there's time for everything under the sun. Now, that has several implications: a time to live, a time to die, a time to sow, and a time to reap, etc., etc. Now, the other implication is that life treats each of us quite differently, and we will each reach our peaks and lows at different points in life. At this stage, a number of you in this room, in fact, most of you in this room, are in the final stages of your standard academic journey, the standard one. Some will do more, some will also end the journey somewhere here. Now, what's most important for you is to understand today that there will be different stages and different purposes and different experiences. I'll talk to you about transitioning from school to the world of work. Now, most often when people tackle this topic, they tend to focus on the hard steps, the procedures, the processes, how to write your CV, how to pass an interview, how to present yourself. But because there's time for everything and life treats all of us differently, it's important that we understand the one fundamental, unique thing that will happen to each of us, which is mindset. Because once you put your mindset in the right place and put your thinking along the right path, it's easier for you to maneuver when life treats you in its own way. So we are going to look at 7 mindset charters today. Now, I coined this the 7 things I wish I knew earlier. But thankfully for all of you, you are knowing this a year or 2, maybe 3 or 4, before you leave school into the world of work. Perfect. I wish you could read this with me because the charter will walk through together. So for those of you who can, come along with me. It says, first of all, I'll make mistakes, but I'll learn to forgive myself and move on quickly before it forms a wall of fear, a mental wall of fear. When I left school 16 years ago, thanks to a number of opportunities I had on campus, people who had mentored me, I was fortunate enough to have walked out with enough confidence about what I wanted in life. But mine works the opposite way. I wasn't sure what I wanted to become, but I knew what I didn't want to become. So I knew, for example, that despite graduating with an accounting degree, I didn't want to become an accountant. And I also knew, for example, the sort of work environment I needed to work in. However, along the way, it hasn't always treated me the way I desired. I've been in work environments that were brilliant. I had bosses that held my hand and dragged me along through difficult times. But I also have worked with some of the most toxic people you can meet. What's most important for you as a person is to accept that as you are starting out, the probability of you making mistakes is very high. However, you will not allow that to form a mental wall of fear. It's very critical for you because confidence is one of the biggest killers for students from this part of the world, especially when you go into an environment that is global, that's international, and you have to compete. You probably find yourself the most brilliant person in the room, but because you are afraid you will make mistakes, it forms a mental wall of fear. And once that happens, you are probably stuck and you are not sure what to do, and you end up second or third best, but you are probably the smartest person in the room because of where you're coming from. Number 2, intentionally nurturing professional relationships is as equally important as building skills and competence. When you start working after school, I know for sure that your priority, based on whichever industry you find yourself in, is to learn as quickly as possible, master the business of whatever industry you are in, and become an expert. This is right. It's important. But as you go along the journey, you will find out that those who get ahead aren't exactly the most competent in the job. They may have some level of competence because you need a certain minimum level of competence to rise to a certain level, but a lot of social skills, relationships, mentoring, even who their godfather or godmother is, makes a big difference in who leaves the bottom, moves to the middle, and who eventually rises to the top. Unfortunately, we have given negative connotations for this in this part of the world. Um, we unfortunately coined it whom you know, and we put it in the bad people's list. But it's important for you to understand that the moment you step into the workplace, those relationships you build, whether it's with your bosses, it's with your peers, whether it's with your MDs and your execs, will one day play out for you in terms of who will pick up a phone and call you and say, look, I have a job in Kenya, come work for me. Or who one day recommend you somewhere halfway across the world to say, I worked with somebody in Ghana, brilliant chap, give him a call, he can do the job. It's absolutely important. Nurturing these relationships is as important as building skills and competence. Number 3, I'll not be afraid to ask for more problems to try my hands on. Now, this is somehow related to the first point I've made. Because you may be afraid, because you may have some mental limitations, you mostly tend to limit yourself to what you've been asked to do. And you hope that by excelling at what you've been asked to do, you will make some progress in your career or at a micro level in your workplace. However, sorry to disappoint you, it is those who tend to do more, who build a bigger spectrum of experiences, who can be more relevant to organizations at different levels and can also be relevant to organizations in different circumstances. So once you step out into the workplace, be like a sponge. Absorb everything that's thrown at you. Volunteer your time. Volunteer any free time you have. Take on extra hours. Join cross-functional projects. Step into any space that's available and try and make an impact there. 1, that's how you be remembered. 2, that's how you make an impact in the organization. And 3, that's how you get ahead in a world full of extremely competent people. 4, have this mindset. No experience is ever a waste of my time. No experience is ever a waste of my time. I know some of you are computer science students today, and your dream is to get into IT. Lovely. Some of you are business students. Your dream is to become an accountant, work for a PwC, work for an EY, charter, move on, grow in life. It may not necessarily happen for you now because there's time for everything under the sun. It may never happen for you at all. Some of you may find yourself in entirely different career paths. Embrace it. No experience is ever a waste of your time. The first time I came back from grad school and did my first consulting job, it was this absolutely difficult thing I did in grad school that someone said, I think I find this interesting. Can you translate this into a strategy document? I was surprised. Back then, we complained, we grumbled, we said it was too long, it was too much hard work, it was too much night time commitment, but it did work for us eventually. Number 5, I'll be accountable to someone. I was fortunate I got a mentor quite early in life who guided me. However, once you enter into the workplace, it's important for you to find someone who sets a benchmark for you. Mostly when we talk about mentors, we are looking at people who've gone far ahead, who've done much, much more, who we desire to be our end goal. But such a person may not readily be available to you. They may not even be remotely available to you. However, it's important for you to understand that we move through life in steps. So it may just be one person who is just one step ahead of you in the organization. That person can serve as your mentor. That person can serve as your guide, because that's the next step you intend to get to. You are not looking maybe 20 years into the future. Just look at the next 3 years. Where do you want to be? And find that mentor. But at the same time as well, it's important and critical for you to find a group of like-minded people who become your circle of friends and your circle of influence. If you are all writing ACCA, in that group, as you move along in your career, you influence each other. I have a similar group, brilliant group of people who drive me along. And my wife always tells me that the kind of friends you have, you cannot fail because they are always running ahead of you. It's super critical for you to have people you can always look up to ahead of you to move on. Number 6, I must intentionally develop and train my soft skills. Look, when you walk into any organization today, they'll try and teach you what they do, how they make their money, how they cover their losses, how they recover, how they plan for the year, based on what industry they are in, based on what work they do, based on what they produce, based on the goods and services they produce. That you are guaranteed to receive at the minimum. But the rest is up to you. Leadership traits, communication, how you relate to your friends, even empathy. Empathy is super critical because as you meet with customers, as you meet with clients, it's important that it becomes a guiding value for you in your life and in the way you work. Empathy is also how you yourself will raise other leaders after you, because you give everybody a chance to shine as well. Work on this, develop your soft skills, adaptability. Until it hits you, you will not know how adaptable you are. But always be willing to change and amend your ways to be able to succeed. Now, finally, I want to talk about change. Change will happen more often than you can imagine. But be comfortable with change. Change will happen to the roles you work in. Change will happen to the industry you work in. Change will happen to the people you work with, even who your leaders are. You may start out in your first 2 years, you have a brilliant boss. By your next 5 years, you may have a total tyrant, but you need to achieve something on the job and you need to succeed. Change is the only constant in life. Be willing to adapt. If your roles change, be willing to change. If you have to change roles every quarter to make meaning to an organization, be willing to do this. So with these mindset problems, and also with these mindset positions that I want you to take today, it will not just influence who you become and where you go, but it also helps you to make sure that you are in the right position and the right thinking frame when the negative days come, as well as when the opportunities come for you to succeed. Remember, the life will keep on evolving, the workplace will keep on evolving, but your mindset around service, around change, around role modeling, around leadership, soft skills will always be the same regardless of where you go. So as you step out, be confident. The world of work can be scary for you, but at the same time, it can be extremely rewarding. And be willing to put in the time, the grit, and the effort during this transition period. Be also open-minded and willing to do a lot, even if it's not required of you to succeed. Thank you very much. I say go out there and do great things, because greatness is in all of us.